Hello students, with the continuation of the previous video on importance of pharmaceutical jurisprudence, I am Aisha Sheikh, lecturer in MCA Society's Institute of Pharmacy, Azam Campus, Camp Pune, is come up with the next video on pharmaceutical legislation in India. Let's see the learning objective. After the completion of the video, the student will be able to define the pharmaceutical legislation, restate its scope and objectives, and express the evolution of concept of pharmacy as an integral part of the healthcare system. Now, let's talk about the introduction and need of the pharmaceutical legislation in India. In ancient time, there were no written law in respect to social, economical, political, and even in the area of drug and pharmaceuticals. In the absence of any law, the practice of manufacture of substandard, spurious, adulterated, and even imported drug was prevalent in India. Thus, the need of pharmaceutical legislation was felt. So, before moving on to understanding the pharmaceutical legislation, we must have to know the law first. Law is the rule of action established by authority, nation, or a state in regulate and control the various aspects of the various legislation. Now, let's talk about the definition of pharmaceutical legislation. It is the legislation which covers the various laws enacted from time to time by the government for the regulation of education, practice and pharmaceutical industry for promoting healthcare system and safeguard the public health. Thus, it is covered with the social, economical and health aspect of the society. Now, let's discuss about the objective of the pharmaceutical legislation. The main purpose of pharmaceutical legislation in India is to ensure that the patient receives the drug of required quality, which is tested and evaluated for the safety and efficacy for their intended use. Some of the other objective under the pharmaceutical legislation is responsible to promote and regulate healthcare system. It promotes the pharmacy profession and the business. It also promotes safeguard the public. It also promotes indigenous research technology. It promotes and regulate control price of the drug. Now, let's talk about the scope of pharmaceutical legislation in India. Under the scope of pharmaceutical legislation, we must know about the rationale behind that. The pharmaceutical legislation is to give the right medication to the right patient at the right time by the right person, that is the registered pharmacist. The various legislation enacted are given below. Drug and Cosmetic Act 1940, the Pharmacy Act 1948, Drug and Magic Remedies Act 1954, Medicinal and Toilet Preparation Act 1955, Drug and Price Control Order 1995, Indian Patent Act 1970, Narcotic Drug and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985. Now, let's talk about the evolution of concept of pharmacy, which is the integral part of the healthcare system. What happened in Indian system of medicine? There is day by day declination of Indian medicine because of the existence of the allopathic medicine. The allopathic medicine, which is practiced in India because of East India Company, which has come in India in 1811, and the chemist shop was started by Mr. Bathgate, and he started a manufacturing of tincture after 100 years, that is in 1910. Then afterwards, there is a Bengal Chemical and Pharmaceutical, which is a manufacturing of the pharmaceutical as well as some of the chemical. Then the small factory is established by the T.K. Gajjar, which is related to the pharmaceutical medication. But these pharmaceutical units were not sufficient to fulfill the need of the Indian public. Therefore, drugs were imported from the abroad, and these cheaper adulterated drugs manufactured in the various parts of the world were imported to India, due to which Indian market got flooded with the inferior and substandard drugs. See, the Indian Medical Gazette reported that there was absolutely no control over manufacturing, import, sale or distribution of the drug in India. So, because of that, several deaths had been reported due to the spurious drug and adulteration. Due to the adverse report, the protest turned by the people within and outside the country regarding the above mentioned facts. So, British government was forced to initiate the action for the drug legislation. Finally, the government was appointed the Drug Inquiry Committee in 1931 under the chairmanship of the Lieutenant Colonel R.N. Chopra to make the effective legislation to control import, manufacture, distribution and sale of the drug. And this committee made a 90 recommendations. Some of the main recommendations are: drug belonging to British Pharmacopoeia or not is needed to be checked. Then, the formation of Pharmacy Council of India and Provisional State Pharmacy Council of India, which is look after the education and training of the pharmacist. Next, and the important recommendation, is the establishment of the Central Drug Laboratory for the testing and the analysis of the sample of the drug. So, initially, the government was reluctant to implement these recommendations to control the import, manufacture, distribution and sale of the drugs. But later, the import of the drug bill was passed by the government in 1937. It deals only with import and not associated with the manufacturing and sale of the drug, and this bill ultimately withdrawn, and finally the Drug Act was passed in 1940, which was later amended and which is called as the Drug and Cosmetic Act 1940. So, this is the brief discussion about the pharmaceutical legislation in India. Hope you all understand. Thank you very much.